Ethan knew the city streets like the back of his hand. Every night he weaved through traffic, delivering pizzas to hungry customers. Most deliveries blurred together, suburban homes, flickering porch lights, the occasional barking dog. But tonight something felt different. The air felt heavier, the shadows deeper. A shiver ran down his spine as he glanced at the address on his latest order slip. It was an address he'd never seen before, out in the middle of nowhere.
Just another delivery, Ethan. You're used to late nights and strange requests.
But his gut told him something was off. He glanced at the clock on the dashboard, almost midnight, time to find out what awaited him at the end of this strange journey. He took a deep breath and started his engine, the headlights cutting through the darkness. As he pulled away from the brightly lit pizza place, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was leaving the familiar world behind. Ethan was heading into the unknown. The address on the order slip led him further and further from the city. Streetlights became scarce, replaced by the eerie glow of his headlights on the deserted road. The houses thinned out, replaced by dense woods that seemed to press in on the car. Ethan gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles turning white. He had never been to this part of town before. It felt isolated, forgotten.
All right, GPS, don't fail me now.
Ethan checked his GPS again. The little blue dot blinked, confirming he was on the right track. But his surroundings didn't match any map he'd ever seen. Tall trees formed a dark canopy overhead, blocking out the moonlight. Ethan's pulse quickened. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. He considered turning back. Maybe it was a prank, a fake address, but something inside him, a sense of duty or perhaps morbid curiosity, urged him forward. He continued down the winding road, the darkness outside mirroring the growing unease within him.
The road seemed to stretch on forever, each turn revealing more of the same unsettling scenery. Ethan felt a bead of sweat trickle down his forehead despite the cool night air. He turned up the radio, hoping to break the oppressive silence. But even the music sounded distorted, as if the darkness itself was interfering with the signal. Just when he was about to give up and turn around, he spotted it, a faint light in the distance.
Finally, some sign of life.
As he drove closer, the light resolved itself into a single lantern flickering weakly beside a rusted iron gate. Ethan pulled up to the gate, his headlights illuminating a weathered wooden sign, Blackwood Manor. The name sent a shiver down his spine. Ethan hesitated. He had never delivered to a place like this. Blackwood Manor looked more like a haunted house from one of his childhood nightmares than a real place. But the order slip was clear, and he had come this far. Taking a deep breath, Ethan got out of his car and pushed open the creaking gate. The air grew colder as he approached the porch, and Ethan could have sworn he heard the faint whisper of wind chimes, even though there was no breeze. The paint peeled from the walls like scabs, revealing the rotten wood beneath. Several windows were boarded up, giving the house a vacant, almost sinister air. The gravel driveway crunched ominously under his feet as Ethan approached the house. It was a towering, Victorian mansion, its once grand facade now crumbling with age and neglect.
Okay, Ethan. Just deliver the pizza and get out of here.
Ethan shifted the pizza box in his hands, feeling a nervous sweat prickling at his skin. The lantern by the gate cast long dancing shadows across the porch, making the house seem to breathe and sway in the darkness.
What would I even say? Hi, I've got your extra large pepperoni with a side of haunting.
As if in answer to his unspoken question, the door creaked open slowly, revealing a shadowy figure standing just beyond the threshold. A woman stood in the doorway, her features obscured by the shadows within the house. She was tall and thin, her silhouette framed by the flickering light of a single candle she held in her hand.
Thank you for coming. Please come in.
Ethan hesitated, unsure whether to step inside. He could feel a strange energy emanating from the house, a palpable sense of unease that sent shivers down his spine.
Sure,
he mumbled, stepping cautiously across the threshold. The air inside felt heavy and stale, thick with the scent of dust and decay. Cobwebs hung from every corner, and the only light came from the single candle the woman carried. The woman led him down a long, dark hallway, the floorboards groaning ominously beneath their feet. The air grew colder with each step, and Ethan felt a growing sense of dread. His senses were on high alert, every creak and groan of the old house sending chills down his spine. The woman led Ethan into a dining room, its grandeur faded with time. A long, dust-covered table dominated the room, surrounded by high-backed chairs draped in cobwebs. A single flickering candle stood at the center of the table, casting long, dancing shadows on the walls.
Please set the pizza down here.
She gestured to an empty plate at the head of the table. Ethan carefully placed the pizza box on the plate, his hands trembling slightly. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was intruding on something private, something sacred. He glanced around the room, half expecting to see ghostly figures seated at the table, their eyes following his every move.
Thank you. That will be all.
Ethan stood frozen, unsure of what to do next. The woman's words hung in the air, heavy with an unspoken meaning he couldn't quite grasp. He wanted to ask her about the house, about why she was living in this desolate place, but something stopped him, a feeling that some questions are best left unasked.
Okay.
He stammered, turning to leave. As he did, he heard a faint noise, like a whisper, coming from the far end of the table. He stopped and listened, his heart pounding in his chest. The whisper came again, clearer this time.
Thank you.
Ethan spun around, his eyes scanning the darkened corners of the room, searching for the source of the voice. He could have sworn it was a man's voice this time, deep and raspy, as if from beyond the grave. But the room was empty.
The photograph?
Ethan's gaze fell on a silver picture frame resting on the table beside the empty plate. The frame was tarnished with age, but the photograph inside was clear. It depicted a young woman in a white dress, her face pale and her eyes staring vacantly ahead. She was beautiful, but there was something eerie about her smile, something hollow and unsettling.
As I stared at the photograph, I realized with a jolt that the woman in the picture looked familiar. Her features, though faded by time, were strikingly similar to the woman who had greeted me at the door. But that was impossible, I thought. The woman in the picture looked like she had stepped out of a bygone era.
He reached out to touch the photograph, his fingers trembling slightly. As he did, he heard the whisper again, closer this time, seeming to emanate from the photograph itself. "Thank you."
Vanishing act?
Ethan stumbled back, knocking over the candle in his haste. The flame sputtered and died, plunging the room into darkness. Panic surged through him, his heart pounding against his ribs. He fumbled for his phone, his fingers shaking as he struggled to find the flashlight app. As his phone's light flickered on, casting eerie shadows across the room, Ethan saw that he was alone. The woman was gone. He shone his light on the head of the table, but the plate was empty. The pizza box was gone. And the photograph was gone. It was as if they had never been there at all.
My breath caught in my throat. The silence in the room was deafening, broken only by the frantic beating of my own heart. I had to get out of there. Now. A ghostly revelation.
Ethan ran. He didn't stop running until he was back at his car, the engine roaring to life like a lifeline. He sped away from Blackwood Manor, his tires spitting gravel as he fled back into the night. He didn't dare look back, terrified of what he might see. As he drove, his mind raced, trying to make sense of what he had just experienced. Had he imagined the whole thing? Was he losing his mind? Or had he stumbled into something truly unexplainable? He glanced at the passenger seat, half expecting to see the pizza box or the silver picture frame, but there was nothing there.
I pulled over to the side of the road, my chest heaving. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing heart. As I did, I noticed something strange. The car smelled faintly of dust and decay, the same scent that had permeated Blackwood Manor. And then I saw it. A single white rose lying on the floor of the passenger seat. It was as if a piece of Blackwood Manor had followed me home.